Maria, how many times can I sing about Maria? Way too damn much, that's how much. What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and to continue my brand new series of classic movie reviews, as well as some musicals leading up to the release of Hamilton, I'm here to let you know that West Side Story is no perfect movie. And as the majority of you already know, West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet told in 50s New York in the vein of a musical. You have two rival street gangs, the all-white Jets and the all-Puerto Rican Sharks, in the middle of a turf war. But what makes it even more complicated is that former Jet Tony falls in love with Maria, played by Natalie Wood, and Maria's brother Bernardo is leader of the Sharks. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to check out West Side Story is that it was co-directed by Robert Wise, who's a lot more well-known for directing The Sound of Music. But before West Side Story, he had no musical experience whatsoever, which is why the studio brought in Jerome Robbins to co-direct alongside him. Until they fired him a third of the way through because they were that concerned about going over budget, and Wise was a lot more reputable as a director. The good news is Wise actually kept in touch with Robbins over the course of production over how to film the musical numbers, how long to hold on certain shots, stuff like that really made such a difference that Wise agreed Robbins should be given co-directing credit. He was. He also received an honorary Oscar at the awards ceremony as opposed to receiving Best Director alongside Wise, but nevertheless, the effort really goes to show, because as great as the songs are, as good as the performances are, the star of West Side Story is the dancing. The dance numbers are portrayed in these massive, huge wide shots in Super Panavision 70 that feature a lot of clarity, a lot of bright, vibrant colors, longer, steady takes of the actors clearly doing their own dance routines. What I love about these routines is that West Side Story demystifies ballet. It's not a strictly feminine form of dance. In fact, no form of dance is strictly feminine or masculine, and this movie understands that perfectly. And there are so many other people that I think deserve equal credit for doing the dance numbers. We have Thomas Sanford, who is considered one of the greatest film editors ever for the amount of work that he went into with this movie. We have Daniel L. Fapp as the cinematographer, who again captures Upper West Side New York in such a massive scope, makes it look like a dance floor. I'm really hoping that In the Heights has that exact same feel, because that was the vibe that I got from watching the trailer. And of course, the performers putting in that much effort to learn their own choreography so they can do all these impressive stunts in one single take. My favorite dance numbers in particular are the prologue, as many people have pointed out. It shows each street gang the level of power they have without any dialogue whatsoever. This one dance number in a gymnasium where they're trying to go at each other while being civil in front of this one cop that's watching. I love that dance number in particular, showing the dance battles between the two of them in a single shot in order to build up the tension between the groups, and also build up the wow factor whenever a character does a backflip or is propelled in the air and caught by another character. Because what's so memorable about West Side Story is the spectacle of it all. And of course, this one song called Cool, where the dance number is supposed to illustrate how this one gang is trying to keep it together without a leader, but they're individually starting to branch off until one guy steps in and says, "We do this as a group. We don't do this individually, or we're fucked." And as for the songs themselves, what I really appreciated about the songs is that they're catchy and memorable, as many people have pointed out, but they also have a fair bit of social commentary that really propel the story and the messages along. Of course, everyone remembers I Feel Pretty because it's, of course, the most cheerful and uplifting song, and the way that it's sung and choreographed really gives you that fast-paced energy that you need in order to keep your spirits up with a dark storyline like this. And I'm going to focus on some of these song names because a few of them are a little tricky. The first one's not too tricky. The first one I want to talk about is called America, where the Sharks and their girlfriends are arguing over whether or not the benefits of living in America outdo living in Puerto Rico, as opposed to the Sharks who miss the dignity and respect of being in Puerto Rico. And the irony of it all is that even though the song is called America and is sung about America, it has this Latin American music and vibe that makes it feel so fast-paced and catchy, and was really the first song that I clicked to as I was watching the movie. I was also a really big fan of G Officer Krupke because of the way it pokes fun at the way society deems outcasts completely unacceptable and how that intolerance encouraged the gang members to start up their own gang. Maria as a song does get really annoying because of just how many times you hear the name Maria, but you get used to it after a while. And the singer in that scene did a really good job. It wasn't the main actor, and I'm gonna mention the singers who dubbed the actors because it's important. The singer who dubbed Tony was Jack Bryant, and he definitely had a really nice sounding tenor voice to him. And Natalie Wood's singing voice was Marty Nixon, who also has this operatic feel to her singing, especially when she's singing I Feel Pretty. But the biggest surprise for me personally was the way West Side Story captures race relations in such a mature, honest, and uncompromising fashion. As I said before, this is the Romeo and Juliet story, but when you replace two rich groups with two poor groups of different ethnicities who are at war with each other over their lives supposedly sucking more than the other, it's already complex and thought-provoking on its own. But I like the way that this movie isn't afraid to point out that even though the Jets are definitely a peg above the Sharks just for being white, the Jets still have it pretty tough. They have abusive parents, they have low-level income families, they do poorly in school, and as opposed to being encouraged by others to work harder, they're discouraged by any common stranger just for being different, and that's what leads them to take out their frustrations in such a racist way towards the Sharks. And the Sharks face racism on a daily basis to the point where whenever any American offers them something out of genuine compassion, they say no to it because they're immediately distrustful. And the movie's not afraid to point out that it is an act of judgment based on race on the Sharks' part. Nobody in this movie is given an easy way out, and that was something that I really respect and admire. I love the way that it gives us explanations for racial intolerance, but does not use the explanations as a justification. I'm getting really heated as I point all this stuff out. Wow. With George Chakiris as Bernardo especially really capturing that hateful, spiteful man who has received so much bigotry over the course of his life that he can't imagine anyone else other than his own people being compassionate to him. You don't condone his actions over the course of the movie, but you definitely understand where he's coming from. Same with Rita Moreno as Maria's best friend, who tries to support her while also giving in to her own hatred, especially during her final scene where she's trying to meet Tony and pass off a secret message out of loyalty to Maria, but Tony's friends are so hateful and kind of rapey in that one scene, if I'm being completely honest, that she says, fuck this, I'm not gonna help out Maria, and she ends up fucking everyone over in the worst possible way, and in my opinion, that scene was what gave Moreno the Oscar. It was that one defining character moment where someone is trying to be loyal and supportive to a friend, but based on everything else that's going on in her life, she goes, fuck this, I've had enough. And that's a really important character to study. It's an important character to show how giving up can make things worse, not just for yourself, but for everyone else around you. But I gotta be honest, there is one big issue with West Side Story. It's that it focuses so much on the themes of hatred and injustice that it kind of overshadows the actual main story of the movie, which is the romance between Tony and Maria. It's not as if the romance isn't there, it's just, it's so underdeveloped compared to the gang war. And I'm just gonna flat out say this, the actor who plays Tony, his name is Richard Beymer, if I said it right, I did not dig his performance. Like, all the Jets have this over-the-top New York Bronx accent that made it a little hard to give in the beginning, especially Russ Tamblyn as Riff, but I got used to the gang after a while. With Tony, he's so overly optimistic and cheerful about everything, especially with his facial expressions and his line delivery, that I really couldn't take him seriously as a character at all. If anything, he's actually less developed compared to Maria, who was played exceptionally well by Natalie Wood. She gave a fantastic performance, really showing the overall moral conflict of being in love with someone who has caused a severe amount of damage to not just her friends and family, but to her own pride. It was an arc that I really enjoyed seeing on screen, and I'm glad I got as much as I did, but it was at the expense of Tony, who is playing a character who one would expect his arc would be about being a bigot but learning how not to be, but he was already a good person at the beginning, and as a result, it made his thoughts and feelings towards the romance and towards making peace with the other sharks feel very inconsequential and kind of random when he does kind of give in to bigotry in this one climactic scene during the middle of the movie. I don't want to spoil it if no one has ever read Romeo and Juliet, even though chances are half of you have, but he's so optimistic about everything in the majority of the movie that when he does become pessimistic, it feels incredibly unrealistic, and I couldn't really buy into it. But that's really all I got. West Side Story is probably one of the best well-made musicals. I can't say it's one of the best musicals, period, because the characterization is pretty hit and miss with the main characters over the side characters, but Robert Wise, Jerome Robbins did a fantastic job directing this movie. They captured the feeling of Sondheim's music perfectly. The dance numbers are incredibly flawless. So many musicals do not have the exact same magic or spectacle as they do in this movie, and the performances themselves are really good. And overall, West Side Story is just the rare musical that really makes you think about what's going on in the world. And for all those reasons, I'm going to give West Side Story a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. If you have seen West Side Story, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Let me know how much you're looking forward to the December version coming up, which I know some people think it's a little early for me to talk about it now, but because Hamilton prides itself so much on the main character being Puerto Rican, the fact that half the cast in West Side Story is Puerto Rican, and I don't know, watching the movie, I got the sense that Miranda was inspired by this movie in particular when he was making In the Heights. So I felt like it was still warranted to talk about it now. Plus, if I want to, I might revisit it in December. Who knows? In any case, let me know your thoughts down below. Be sure to stay tuned for more classic movie musical reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.